Good evening. Welcome to my channel. My name is David Okon. And thank you everyone who have been supporting this channel, everyone who have subscribed to this channel and shared with family and friends. Sharing with family and friends, everybody who have been sharing their views, giving views, leaving a comment, clicking notification bell for new videos. We are a bit slow. We are up and down. Sometimes we are very slow. Other times we are okay. Our videos are unique. I would say they are quite informative. They are less entertaining. But we are getting there. We are trying to see how to balance things out and improve on editing as well as improving on other aspects and looking for the best approach to videoing. And yes, we are 10 months into the project, and this channel was created in 2012, and nothing was done to this channel until last December. We are 10 months into active activities. We have been talking about the cost of living. The cost of living we have looked at from different perspectives, and this is now the third video. We are looking at Africa. Africa, as we saw with the information we got online and the history of Africa, and now we will be looking at the geography of Africa. Africa, let us remember that Africa has really contributed immensely to global civilization. In Egypt, North Africa, we remember to seeing the origin, the genesis of modern civilization. Let us, the people of the world, celebrate Africa. And as we look at Africa from the point of view of the cost of living. The cost of living is a crisis, a global crisis, but like I tried to say before in this video on Africa, Africa suffers more, the cost of living crisis suffering more than any other continent. Other world is the poorest, literally the poorest of the poor. And yet, in terms of potential, Africa should be the world food basket of the world. A continent now suffering, a famine. People go hungry, children suffer, people actually die of famine-related illnesses. Just a minor illness can kill a person in Africa very quickly, and this is a poor indictment of the globe, which actually benefited from Africa in terms of slave trade, in terms of stealing actually resources from Africa. And to this day, the slavery, that indirect slavery, is still continuing across the globe. And we are seeing around the world, even in the developed world, what we refer to as democracy. Democracy is now put to the ultimate test. My invitation to my fellow Democrats and my fellow humanitarians of the world to take a careful look and also take a careful consideration on our culture. Our culture simply means a deeper and more integrated understanding of what humanity is all about. Humanity is consisting of it valuing people, respecting self and others, respecting their spaces, their property. And if we learn, like we probably had learned from the beginning of time, if we restore our capacity to build relationship with what I call the cultural economy, then we begin to understand the value of human in a new way, and we put humans first over and above even wealth. this is no way to despise wealth, but it is a way to celebrate wealth. Wealth is there for humanity, and humanity is the driver of life, and life has meaning only when humans are valued across the globe. And this point I have reiterated across the globe through this channeling, and up and down the country through this channeling, and through outside this channeling as well. It is something I strongly believe in. I believe in humanity, and I believe that if we change the way we think in terms of how we treat humanity, humans, then we are going to start drawing a new roadmap, and also a pathway leading to peaceful coexistence with one another, and also with the natural worlds, even with the worlds involving wildlife, animals, trees, and the environmental, estates. The world, the world become our oyster as soon as we address humanitarian issue. As soon as we begin to respect, as long as we begin the long road to freedom, as long as we chart that way, highway to addressing the question of peace. We can have peace with respect to humanity, like I said, in what I call the cultural economy. We have done well in the world as the humans, and yes, humans as society on the developmental front, and we have technology, science, engineering. We have wealth, we have a lot of knowledge about the world, about politics, about economics, about the environment. You look at our development and realize our potential, our capacity to change the world, and that is what I believe we can what I've set out to put in order in this dispensation. I believe strongly that not despising a small beginning, we are very small. I believe we are sending a message out there for the few who are still watching us. My hope is that more and more people will begin watching us, and the more the merrier when we begin to work together to promote the idea of peace, the idea of happiness. Without peace, there is no happiness. As you know, there is always no peace for the wicked. If we do wrong things, we end up without peace, and that is something I've repeated over and over. That is at the heart of our looking at the cost of living as a crisis. What actually creates the cost of living is the humanitarian question of whether or not we respect one another. If you respect one another, you don't leave them to languish in abject poverty in Africa and around the world. And if you look at the world, there is so much poverty. Over 90% of the population within the developed world and outside it are actually living in poverty, and we cannot allow that to continue. And in as much as I begin to look at information on Africa, we're sharing information on Africa so that we begin to understand, to value Africa, to see the potential of the continent, the beauty of the worlds surrounding African continent. As much as the worlds around us in the other continent, we begin to value life, and that is the whole point about our conversation. Let us look at the geography, geology, ecology, and the environment of Africa. And Africa, if you're watching this video, watch it with the other three, I think, already. Two videos, I think. 2 or 3 videos on Africa. I think this is the third. I've lost count. I've been doing so many materials. So we are looking at the topography of Africa. And Africa is the largest of the 3 great southward projections from the largest land mass on the earth. I repeat that point. Africa is the largest of the three great southward projections from the largest landmass of the earth, I think. That information speaks volume. This is the geographical outlook of Africa, and it is separated from Europe by the Mediterranean Sea. It is joined to Asia at its northeast extremity by the Isthmus of Suez, transected by the Suez Canal, 163 kilometers and 101 miles wide. Geographically, Egypt, Sinai Peninsula east of the Suez Canal is often considered part of Africa as well. The coastline is 26,000 kilometers, 16,000 miles long, and the absence of deep indentation of the shore is illustrated by the fact that Europe, which covers only 10,400,000 square kilometer and 4 million square mile, about a third of the surface of Africa, has a coastline of 32,000 kilometers, 20,000 miles. From the most northern point, Ras Ben Shaka in Tunisia, 37 degrees and 21 inches north, to the most southerly point, Cape Agulhas in South Africa, 34 degrees and 51 inches feet and 15 inches south, in a distance of approximately 8,000 kilometers and 5,000 miles. Cape Verde, 17 degrees, 33 feet and 22 inches. The westernmost, the westernmost point is a distance of approximately 7,400 kilometers, 4,600 miles, to Ras Al-Khaimah, 51 degrees, 26 feet and 52 inches east. The most easterly projection that neighbors Cape Guardafui at the tip of the Horn of Africa. Africa's largest country is Algeria, and its smallest country is Seychelles, an archipelago of the coast of the east coast. The smallest nation on the continental mainland is the Gambia. So we look at the African plate, and today the African plate is moving over Earth's surface at a speed of 0.296 degrees knots and 0.007 degrees per million years relative to the average Earth NLR MORF novel 56. And leave a comment below if you know this terminology. This section is an excerpt from the African plate. Edit as you want to do. The African plate, also known as the Nubian plate, is a major tectonic plate that concludes much of the continent of Africa except for its easternmost part and the adjacent oceanic crust to the west and the south. It is bounded by the North African and North American plate and South American plate to the west, separated by the mid-Atlantic ridge, the Arabian plate and the Somali plate to the east, the Eurasia plate and Asian Sea plate and the Anatolian plate to the north, and the Antarctic plate to the south. I think this borders now on the physical geographical outlook of Africa as opposed to the regionalism with a mix of the two. Between 60 million years ago and 10 million years ago, the Somali plate began drifting from the African plate along the East African rift. Since the continent of Africa consists of crust from both the African and Somalia plate, and some literature refers to the African plate as the Nubian plate to distinguish it from the continent as a whole. Let us look at the climate. This is some of the wonders which actually speaks for Africa, a beautiful continent and extremely resourceful continent full of minerals, well watered, and the people are so exotic, to say the least. It being Africa is actually the cradle of humanity, and it's something we should celebrate. We should not allow Africa to languish in poverty. We should not allow the people of the world to languish in poverty any more than we allow our wildlife, our environment to be destroyed by people who are actually not into valuing life. Because if you abuse humanity, you are actually an alien. And true humans don't abuse each other. We do not abuse the environment. We don't abuse our wealth. We use it actually to celebrate life. So let us look at the climate of Africa. The climate of Africa ranges from the tropical to subarctic. On its highest peak, its northern half is primarily desert or arid, while its central and southern area contain both savanna, plains, and dense jungle rainforest regions. And that's Africa. And everybody who have been to Africa will bear testimony of the wonder that Africa is. In between, there is a convergence where vegetation patterns such as the Sahel and steppe dominate. Africa is the hottest continent on Earth, and 60% of the entire land surface consists of dry lands and deserts. The record for the highest ever recorded temperature in Libya in 1922, 58 degrees Celsius, 136 Fahrenheit, was discredited in 2013. There are conflicting information on Africa, and everybody say one thing or another about Africa. To my mind, I think people lovers of Africa should take over, whether you're black or white, green or blue, whatever your skin color. If you love Africa, begin to speak truth to power and to also the lesser powers. Whatever you speak truth to the best of your ability. We have a lot of modern resources. It is a good technique, technological, scientific advantages. We should be telling the truth more than we lie, or more than we mislead, and it's about respect. And we'll talk about the cost of living in Africa, but we're looking at the potential of Africa to change the life in Africa. Even the modern technology, nanotechnology, 3D printer, these are actually, the state of the art in our human development, alongside technology, things like artificial intelligence. If we use these, technological and engineering wonders for peaceful purposes, then we should have incidences and solutions, including the cost of living crisis. And this is all about poverty. This is about getting people out of poverty, getting Africans out of poverty, getting the Europeans, Americans, who actually, 90%, 95% of the world population still languishing in poverty. This is unacceptable. We cannot allow this to go on. Let us go back to looking at Africa and the cost of living in Africa, a continent which should never have been associated with poverty in the first instance, or there to speak, we shouldn't be even talking about the cost of living in Africa. The cost of living is about poverty, wherever it exists, and it should not really carry on. And those in power, governments, and in public, like presidents and prime ministers, politicians. If you are still human, if you are still prepared to learn how to value humanity over and above power and wealth, come along and join us, here or elsewhere, talk about peace, talk about humanity, talk about valuing humanity over and above other things. Not no matter what. I mean, if you are an alien, then join us and behave yourself. If, we don't accept foreigners from other spaces to misbehave and begin misleading humans about the value of humanity. Humanity comes first, and that is how it's going to be, and that's how it has always been. That is our language and our key to peace and happiness. And now let us look at the ecology and biodiversity of Africa, and the main biomes in Africa. Africa has over 3,000 protected areas with 119 marine protected areas, 50 biosphere reserves, and 80 wetlands reserve. This is actually environmentalist partners. The ones who love nature should be the first to visit Africa, should be the first to demonstrate their passion for the continent, and also contribute to the best of their ability to carry forward the conversation, calling for celebrating among the best places on earth, being Africa and the people of Africa. And therefore we are talking about significant habitat destruction, increases in human population, and poaching, reducing Africa's biological diversity and arable land. I have a thing or two to say about habitat destruction, about increase in human population. I think the world is enough. I think Africa is enough for Africans and for the world. And the idea that many people are actually the one creating the problem is false. And this line of thought should actually be treated with caution. And if we are trying to deal with population, and this is no time to talk about our population, because we need first of all to get humanity out of poverty, and then we begin to talk about technology, and we begin to talk about whether or not people are too many on earth. That is not true, because the world is enough. There are so many empty places, and when we talk about population, there's an exaggeration, and that should stop, especially in Africa, also in the developed world, because we can use technology to extend the resources of the world and to live better. The problem we should talk about is violence and war and nastiness and negligence and hatred for humanity. People who say people are over and the world is overpopulated is wicked. Is somebody who should be educated culturally to start respecting humanity. It is respectful for people, at least people from around outside Africa, to go to Africa, to start and try and control the population of Africa, and deceiving Africans, African women to stop bearing children. If they stop bearing children, it should be for the right reason. And with technology, we should focus now on easing birth pains and inconvenience of natural birth, to improve healthcare, the safety for pregnant women around the world, especially in Africa, other than teaching them to do contraceptive. If they want to do contraceptive, let it be for a specific reason, but women should be encouraged to have more children, and women should be encouraged to not abort. Abortion is a form of murder, and people who are actually very ruthless, who are very wicked, who are very violent, are promoting abortion now and misleading women to say things like, to allow women to actually do wrong things, such as women should have control over their bodies. We are human. We share the world. We share our lives. We should be like funny individuals who only think of themselves, and we are trying to mislead women. The wicked people are trying to teach women to be wicked and men to be really behaving like wizards. disrespecting women, abusing women. That is something we should work on. We should really reduce focus on things like domestic violence. And women, actually, to ask a woman to abort a child is actually is an abuse on women, to turn women into murderers and breakers of the sanctity of life, the code of sanctity of life. And these people should be actually removed from power, and they should stop influencing anyone to mislead people to commit murders. And any form of abortion should be criminalized by good people of the world. And women should be supported to be mothers, to be beautiful girls, and to be lovers and not murderers. And this should stop. And human encroachment, we don't talk of human encroachment. The world belongs to humanity. Encroachment is a criminal language, and it should be removed from the vocabulary when describing nature. Nature is for humans, it's not for wild animals at all. Wizards and witches who go to Africa to teach people to be violent and to be wicked, to be like, dog and cats. These are really wrong individuals. Human encroachment should stop. I mean, that kind of language should be eliminated. Humans are not encroaching on it. They are working on their worlds. This is the human world. It's not animal world. It's not the world for trees. What do you mean they're encroaching? So you talk about biological diversity. So what? I mean, the biological diversity is for us. If we were not violent, if we were not fighting wars, if we were not doing experiments with dangerous chemical weapons, if we were not dumping waste on seas, and the very people who are destroying the environment are actually haters of humanity, they are actually saying bad things about Africa. They go to Africa to abuse Africa, to prevent Africa from developing their land, to celebrating their land. Africa, the Africa's continent is for Africans and for people who go there peacefully. Do not come to Africa to teach us about biodiversity. We know it. It is actually people who have been destroying the earth, building dangerous weapons of mass destruction, to like nuclear weapon, chemical weapon, biological weapon. They are the ones going to perform their wizardry in Africa. Talking about the biological diversity and arable land. Arable land, we should be growing food, and the continents with money should help Africa to develop their land. Don't go and tell us that, don't go and abuse us and tell us that we are encroaching on any land. It is our land. It is your land also if you are a human being, because we share our world. Though we are in Africa, we share our world with foreigners. Foreigners should not stop coming to Africa to behave as if they own Africa and be using African. Africans are living in poverty. We should be talking about poverty and not nonsense about biological diversity. Biological diversity for what? If Africans are destroyed, by violence, nobody from people who are really, they are so keen on destroying humanity, they will go there to Africa to practice their wizardry. And if we get power in Africa, we will actually stop you from Africa, and we will go into other continents and stop you from there, because we don't want wizards around the world talking nonsense. And we know about arable land, we know about biological diversity. We don't encroach on our environment, and we talk about, so this material is talking about human encroachment, civil unrest, and the introduction of non-native species threatened by diversity in Africa. Okay, if we are introducing non-native species, if we do it peacefully, the more the merrier. You introduce a non-native species in Africa, there is no problem with that, unless the science is sound, unless we don't take unnecessary risks to introduce species which are actually not good for Africa or for anywhere else. But if we are actually keen on working with science and technology, engineering, anything living in the world, like trees, plants, has its use. So we can actually manage that, but we should stop scaremongering. There are people who are pretending to talk about the environment now, while trying to kill people by preventing people from developing land, by developing their countries, so that we use our land and nature to get humanity out of poverty. And I don't like to hear rubbish about from wizards. This has been exacerbated by administrative problem. Administrative problem is created by political failures and cultural failures. If we learn to respect, we will not have administrative problem. We can solve our problem. Inadequate personnel and funding problem, these are solvable problems. These are developmental issues. But behind these are actually failure to invest in Africa, and failure by the IMF and the World Bank to support Africa legitimately, and preventing Africa from investing in social welfare, and starving Africa to death, and threatening Africa with extinction of humanity. And perhaps some of these wizards probably are imagining Africa as a wildlife reserve with animals, with other things other than humans. And there are people who are conspiring to destroy Africa, not just Africa, but to destroy humanity, pretending to love nature. You cannot love nature if you don't love humans. So I can say in the best possible way for you to shut up and let proper human, get on with development and protection of their environment appropriately. Deforestation is affecting Africa at twice the world rate, according to the United Nations Environment Program, UNEP. Yes, if Africans are using that forest, let them use it. They need to use it, let them use it. And the only thing, if you're clever, try to use science and technology and plant engineering to plant appropriate trees in appropriate areas. Places are reserved for food production, for producing other things. Should not be should not be really overcrowded with trees. We don't eat trees. We may eat fruits and vegetables, and those are the things we should be planted first. And in the rocky area, less fertile places, we can plant trees for decoration and for improving air quality. And this should be done in balance. You cannot just go to Africa and start lecturing us about nature, environmental nonsense, when people are dying of diseases, poverty, food poverty, energy poverty, when we are talking about the cost of living. So according to the University of Pennsylvania African Studies Center, 31% of Africa's pasture lands and 19% of its forests and woodlands are classified as degraded, and Africa is losing over 4 million hectares of forest per year, which is twice the average deforestation rate for the rest of the world. So Africa is suffering from the Sahara Desert, the threat of Sahara Desert, because there is no rain in Africa. We need to see how to water Africa. We need to see how to plant trees in Africa. We need to see how to use natural resources in a balanced way. Before we begin to waste our time talking about nature, let us talk about people who are actually suffering poverty in Africa and around the world. We cannot be acting like perverts to care more about nature and natural environment and do funny studies from funny universities, not even thinking about children dying of poverty in Africa. I only talk about nature. That is actually a form of wickedness. We should never actually encourage wizards in Africa. Whether they are from Africa, if they are wizards in Africa, we need to really export them. And if wizards are coming from abroad, let us send them back where they came from. We don't want a situation of the cost of living, and nobody wants to talk about the cost of living. and we only talk about nature and some other form of nonsense. We need to find out how we are going to water Africa. There are technology where we can actually, clean up seawater to water Africa. Africa is affected by drought, and this drought is killing people because interfering with food production. And if you are so clever, you should now, especially the ones from the rich continents like Europe, America, wherever you are, if you are that clever, what you should be doing in Africa is to actually avail African governments to buy tractors, for producing wheat, for producing millet, producing fruit and vegetables, building houses for the poor, and in developing transport infrastructure, getting African out of poverty. That is a priority before we even mention the nonsense about nature or environmental protection. You cannot talk of protecting environment until you get humans out of poverty. This applies not only in Africa but across the globe. So let us look at this information. Deforestation is affecting Africa at twice the world rate, according to the United Nations Environmental Program, UNEP. According to the University of Pennsylvania African Studies Center, 31% of Africa's pastoral lands and 90% of its forests and woodlands are classified as degraded, and Africa is losing over 4 million hectares of forest per year, which is twice the average deforestation rate for the rest of the world. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click notification bell, share with your family and friends, and thank you so much for your support. We are looking at Africa, we are looking at the geographical panoply, and we were looking at the geographical landscape of Africa. And join us in this program. According to some sources, claim that approximately 90% of the origin virgin forests in West Africa have been destroyed. How was it destroyed? And who says so? What are we going to do about it? If forests are destroyed, let us reforest and water the area. That's the whole point. And if it is destroyed, then probably let us know why it is being destroyed, and let us reforest. About 65% of Africa's agricultural land suffers from soil degradation. So what are we going to do about it? Afro-tropical realm and pelagic realm environmental issues. This section is an excerpt from the environmental issues in Africa. And if we tend to talk more about environment and poverty, then we are fake. African environmental issues are caused by human impacts on the natural environment and affect humans in nearly all forms of life. Well, I disagree with that, because Africans are only using land sparingly. They don't have the technology to mass produce anything. If human activity destroy nature in Africa, then it is destroyed probably by logging, by perhaps also rich people stealing or even abusing the trees and natural products. And I don't see Africans doing anything adversely to affect nature, because nature can be used effectively. What is the problem in Africa is actually drought, and it's killing humans, it's killing animals, and the world should concentrate on how to water Africa in the first place. In the second, how to plant trees where trees need planting. But first of all, let us prioritize planting enough food for Africa, producing enough energy, build enough food, build enough infrastructure, healthcare infrastructure, education, transportation, before talking about anything else. That is a priority. That is why the cost of living is being spoken about in this program. And so African environmental issues are caused by human impact, but also non-human impact. Animals are also causing environmental issues. You blame humans, you don't blame animals. Humans are supposed to be more responsible. But if Africans are actually under siege because of poverty, and you have dangerous dictators now destroying Africa a bit more. Let us deal with that first, and then all the other things will happen. This is not just in Africa, but across the globe. And so we talk about water scarcity resulting in problems with access to safe water supply and sanitation. Safe water supply is the result of negligence, because we have enough technology to produce water. There are a lot of water under the continent, underground water, which with technology we can actually supply the globe with fresh water underground. There are rainwater which can be filtered, it can be harvested. There are actually waters in rivers which can be turned into, it can be improved to supply water. We can create dams. There is enough facility, there is enough rivers and lakes in Africa, fresh water in Africa, especially East Africa. And if you have the political will, if we are not really, weird and violent, we would be concentrating on development other than on warfare. And therefore, the problem of Africa is not really other than people fighting and violently through economic, through military, through all sorts of approaches to warfare. Let us start living peacefully and solve the world problem, poverty first, and then all other things will fall. That's why I'm talking about the cost of living. It's not for anything else. This issue results in environmental conflict and connected to broader social struggle for democracy and sovereignty. Democratic struggle for sovereignty is not a major issue in Africa. We don't really need sovereignty because we are now becoming a global world. Globalization, it means giving up of sovereignty. Sovereignty is not really something we should think about. We shouldn't even talk about it anymore. We talk about globalization, but before we talk about anything, let us learn to respect people and learn to produce peace. People who are actually disrespectful should not be in power. Their wealth should be taken away by humans and given to humans, and humans are actually people who are respectful. Even if you're a human being and you're disrespectful, you are going to be fired. We are going to kick you out from the human family. So let us look at water in Africa. Africa water precipitation. This section is an excerpt from the water in Africa. Water in Africa is an important issue encompassing the sources, distribution, and economic uses of the water resources on the continent. Overall, Africa is about 9% of the world's fresh water resources and 16% of the world's population. And among its rivers are the Congo, Nile, Zambezi, the Niger, and also Lake Victoria, considered the world's second largest lake. Yet the continent is the second driest in the world, with millions of Africans still suffering from water shortages throughout the year. Like I said, this poverty and mismanagement of natural resources. These shortages are attributed to the problems of uneven distribution, population boom, and poor management of existing supplies. I disagree with the concept of population being the cause of poverty in Africa, or even water poverty shortages. I disagree with that because we have enough resources, we have technology, we have the science to use water from different sources. Water can be actually imported from the seas and desalinated from oceans and distributed across the world, over the world, in Africa, in deserts, in wherever. Actually, Sahara Desert can be watered into wetlands. So let us really start to live peacefully and concentrate on truth other than useless lies. There is a significant variation in the rainfall pattern observed in different places and time. There is also high evaporation rates in some parts of the region, resulting in lower percentages of precipitation in such places. Yeah, Africa is very hot, but we can manage it. If Israel can grow fresh product, they can grow forests in a semi-deserted place in the Middle East. Why should Africa, even including actually, North Africa, where the Sahara Desert is the biggest in the world, but where there is oasis along the line, is a very fertile area, and this modern technology can be used to desertify Africa. However, there is very significant inter and intra-annual variability of all climate and water resources characteristics. So while some regions have suffered water, Sub-Saharan Africa faces numerous water-related challenges that constrain economic growth and threaten the livelihoods of its people. Yes, that is true, but we can actually change that, because if China can grow rice in desert, I think it's Atacama desert, Gobi desert. I think it's Gobi desert. China are now growing rice there. We can grow food on the desert. We just have to be peaceful and use the available technology to do that. If Elon Musk is preparing to take human to Mars, then you should start from Sahara Desert in Africa, and also Atacama Desert, these places, Kalahari Desert. Unless Elon Musk is done into a wizard, you're going into space when there is problem, and that problem to solve on Earth. What kind of rich man or woman are you? Behaving like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Sir Richard Branson? They're obsessed with the space. I don't disagree that there is value in starting space, but you don't really neglect Africa. Rich people, multimillionaires, including Bill Gates and his wife. You don't leave Africa to languish in poverty and get involved in Africa in really strange ways. So the main sources of electricity is hydropower, which contributes significantly to the current installed capacity for energy. Why don't you use solar panel? Africa has more sun anywhere. This sun can be used to produce solar energy through solar paneling, and we can use that to generate water from the underground, from the earth, from wherever. We can even bring water from ocean into, we can desalinate water in ocean. I think Israel is now doing a desalination program. Probably China is probably doing it. We have technology. If we can have technology to go into space, how comes we don't have technology to desalinate water, seawater, to water Sahara Desert and the other deserts, so that life can begin to thrive using solar panel? Africa should be energy independent. We have petroleum in Africa. We are just acting violent. We're acting weird. We are really funny people of the world. Let us learn to be peaceful. I have said elsewhere and on this video that the cost of living is caused by violence, but it's a form of warfare on humanity. And these are actually orchestrated by people in power, people who have learned to be inhuman. Probably their ancestors were aliens. We don't need them. The main source of electricity, therefore, the Kainji Dam. Sorry, we have just messed it up. So we'll talk about the water supply in Africa, and we need to really be peaceful and talk about climate change if you want. And I am a believer in climate change, but this climate change cannot be a priority as a solution when there is a human problem. There is a lot of wealth in the world. People are still living in poverty. What kind of climate change are you talking about? What kind of population, are you talking about? So we were saying somewhere here, this launch truck, this equipment is really driving me crazy, because it's not really doing what I asked it to do. Technology should do what humans want them to do. And so we were saying these shortages are attributed to the problem of uneven distribution, whatever, 30%. There is a significant variation in the rainfall patterns observed in different places. Let us see, hydropower, we were here. The Kainji Dam is a typical hydropower resource generating electricity for all the large cities in Nigeria as well as their neighboring country, Niger. So, hence the continuous investment in the last decade, which has increased the amount of power generated. I want these people to talk about solar power more than even water. If we have shortage of water, then we cannot rely on water to generate electricity in Africa. Let us talk about sun. How are you going to use sun to generate power, electricity in Africa? Even the way Chinese are doing it to generate, or elsewhere we are using solar farm to produce energy and other forms of energy sources. Africa is a country of sun. So let us talk about climate change, music to our ears. And there are people who are really in love with climate change, so am I. I want a better world. I want a healthy environment, and even in Africa. And but in Africa and around the world, our number one priority is not climate change, dealing with climate change. If we are serious about climate change, let us eradicate poverty in 10 years. And that is possible. All the rich people give your money to build houses for everyone on earth, produce food for everyone on earth. If you are men and women enough, if you think women like Oprah Winfrey in America, Beyonce, Rihanna is a multi-billionaire in US dollar. What in the world are you doing, Madonna, and all the men? These celebrities who are extremely rich. What is wrong with you? What are you doing, especially black ones? Why don't you go to Africa and begin to produce food and produce energy, even at a small scale? Go and support small and light industry with tractors and implements for producing food. Are you wizard and wicked? What's wrong with you? Climate change in Africa is an increasingly serious threat, as Africa is among the most vulnerable continents to the effects of climate change. Now, the source of vulnerability to Africa is poverty and hunger and disease and corruption and violence and political violence, dictatorship. That is actually number one priority on the list of problems to solve in Africa. Environment is important, but the environment can be managed. And as long as people live peacefully, as long as people could stop throwing dangerous bombs around, we are not even talking about wars in Israel or wars in Ukraine. We are using deadly weapons like chemical weapons, like we even have nuclear weapons. We behave like dangerous wizards and witches. So what authority have you got to talk about environment protection if you are in America, or even if you are a dangerous dictator in Africa? You are really weak. So some sources even classify Africa as the most vulnerable continent on earth. Yes, it is. Because of poverty, because of political violence, military dictatorship, because of use of chemical weapons, and strange diseases are occurring in Africa. We don't know where they are coming from. Are they being created? Are they being modified? Malaria, HIV/AIDS. These are the problem. The number one problem. These are the viruses. All these strange things happening in Africa. The locusts and all these hailstones. Landslide. Rain are happening in Africa, which is actually causing flood. Flood are killing people. Winds, strange winds. Extreme heat. What kind of world? This is not only in Africa. It's happening everywhere in the world. What are we doing? We need to use technology to tame nature. Why not? I mean, we are humans. So some sources, this vulnerability is driven by a range of factors that include weak adaptive capacity, high dependence on ecosystem goods for livelihood, and less developed agricultural production systems. Well, to a point, I might agree with that, but that is also a problem occurring in other parts of the world. It's not just Africa specific. The risk of climate change on agricultural production, food security, water resources, and ecosystem services will likely have increasingly severe consequences on life and sustainable development prospects in Africa. With high confidence, it was projected by the IPCC in 2007 that in many African countries, the region's agriculture and production and food security would probably be severely compromised by climate change and climate vulnerability. Managing these risks requires an integration of mitigation and adaptation strategies in the management and ecosystem goods and services and the agricultural production system in Africa. Over the coming decades, warming from climate change is expected across almost all the earth and surfaces, and global mean rainfall will increase. I'm going to continue talking to you, and just going to pop into my kitchen. I'm also cooking, and this is also an opportunity to look around to see what is happening in this place. I'm just going into the kitchen and showing you how things are around here. Just interrupting this program, and this is my kitchen. I'm just going to switch off the heater, and then we can go back and continue with our conversation in terms of dealing with Africa, because of living in Africa. And obviously, we are back. We are into our station, this area, this location. You should be more familiar with this location than any other location in this place. And this is where we have been working, and this is where everything happens, which happens on this channel. We talk about Africa, we are talking about the geography of Africa, and geography of Africa is about wealth, about the wealth of Africa, the natural wealth potential of Africa, natural resources in Africa. And like we said before, Africa is one of the wealthiest potentially in Africa, in the world as a continent. And that's why sometimes you find that people actually scramble for Africa, especially people of wealth, people with power in Africa and outside Africa. You know, we have been talking also about capitalism, which is actually about power and wealth. And I've been challenging the idea of pushing capitalism to the other extreme, where we only think of money and wealth, and development is a good thing. And capitalism is the driver of development, is the best system to create wealth. But if we become perverts and really violent and really queer and funny and thinking more about money other than humans, then we are in a serious trouble. Then we see wars, we see features, we see it is one war leads to another, environmental war. We are talking about environmental degradation, but we cannot promote human wrong and talk about the environment at the same time. Let us be clever. Let us take our priority and look at our culture and respect for people first, because people are responsible for the earth. The earth belongs to people, not animals, not trees, not air. Air is for humans and not the other way around. If you think so, then you are an alien and you are not welcome. If you are an alien and you want to settle on earth, listen to us. Humanity is at the center of the universe. And if you think otherwise, then you feel free to leave the earth and go wherever you want to go. We don't want to see you around. And let's go back to what we were doing and to talk about what we're talking about. And obviously, current Africa is warming faster than the rest of the world on average. That's an obvious statement because we are in the tropics. The sun shines there more than anywhere else in the world. Look at Sahara Desert. I mean, we don't know what to do with Sahara Desert. Africa is really hot, to be frank, and there's nothing we're going to do about that except we need more water, we need more technology, we need to get out of poverty in Africa, first of all. And as we talk about the cost of living, we know the cost of living is caused by poverty. You cannot run away from that fact if you are in power. If you are, a think tank, a journalist, you are, a business magnate, you are a politician, whoever you are, whenever you have wealth and power, your responsibility fit responsibility of the rest of the human community. So the regional effects of rainfall in the tropics are expected to be much more especially vulnerable, and the sign of change at any one location is often less certain, although the changes are expected. Consistent with these, observed surface temperatures have generally increased over Africa since the late 19th century to the early 21st century by about 1 degree Celsius, but locally as much as 3 degrees Celsius for minimum temperature in the Sahel at the end of the dry season. Observed precipitation trends indicate the spatial and temporal discrepancies as expected. The observed changes in temperature and precipitation vary regionally. Let us look at fauna. The fauna of Africa. The fauna, I think it's fauna of Africa. Savannah at Ngorongoro Conservation Area in Tanzania. And Africa was perhaps the world's largest combination of density and range of freedom, and freedom of wild animal population in diversity, with wild population of large carnivores such as lion, hyenas, and cheetahs, and the herbivores such as buffalo, elephant, camels, giraffe, ranging freely on primary open land, private plains. So these are actually African lands. They are not private plains because African culturally are not natural owners of land. They communally and culturally own lands. Because of capitalism and imperialism, Africa is now transforming into private land owners. It was not customary. Land was not seen as a property. Even now, the value of land in Africa is quite low. Because of our culture, we look at nature. Africa should not be accused of destroying nature. We are actually the natural preserver of nature. It is actually around town and cities that there is a lot of destruction, there is a lot of abuse. If you see the slums in Africa, you will know for sure that the evil actually run the world. And if you're rich and in power, you are absolutely evil if you allow the slums of Africa to exist. I'm going to South Africa, go to Kenya. And Kenya is a leading developed African country. In Africa, is one of the leading, the most developed country in Africa. But one of the most evil countries in Africa is Kenya. Really, if you look, if you judge by its slums, some of the poorest, the most abused, the most evil sites are in Kenya and also in Uganda, my country where I come from, because of years of war and dictatorship and brutality. A lot of evil. Rulers of the world are evil. I think we need to change the way we do government, the way we do business, the way we do economy, and people who are evil should either voluntarily leave power and let good people take over, because you cannot have slums in Kenya, in South Africa, perhaps in Ghana, in Nigeria also. In Africa, you see the level of poverty and the level of wealth sitting, side by side, and the concept is the same. The few of Africa and the few of the Western world, Europe, America, the few are Such wealth. The obscenity of wealth. The obscenity of wealth among wealthy people, among the few, 5%, 10% of people, is increasingly becoming bizarre. And you see the level of poverty creating the cost of living crisis, and the other crises are along the way. Different type, COVID-19, financial havoc, like we saw with the credit crunch in 2007 and 2008. More and more, the world wars, First and Second World War, and before then, the war or whatever, Mussolini, whatever, all these people really now, these are really subhumans, because humans don't behave like that. I mean, you don't kill people like that. I mean, if you're a human being, what is that? I mean, it's a form of wickedness. It's really, really a horror story. And this is what I'm talking about. The cost of living is a symptom of evil. In addition, Africa has the largest number of megafauna species, as it was least affected by the extinction of the Pleistocene megafauna, whatever that is. Leave a comment below if you know what that is. We are coming to talk about politics, and I think we are going to stop this video here as well, because I think we have been talking a lot so far about Africa. I may do another video today or tomorrow about Africa. And if you have been watching up to this time, give yourself a pat on the back. You are a hero or a heroine if you're a woman. We have been doing very well today, talking about Africa in a fairly robust way. And let us remember that the world is in our hands. The world is enough. And we are humans, whether you're black or white, it doesn't really matter. And all you have to remember is to respect yourself and respect other people and work together for peace. And we have everything we need in our lives. And we have languages, we have knowledge, technology, engineering, everything is there for us to be complete. We are there to be together and stronger. We are to learn and acquire power, generate more and more wealth. I believe in technology, engineering. I believe in capitalism to create wealth and produce technology, engineering, so that we all become powerful agents of life. And but at the heart of it, by way of priority, I think our culture needs to be regenerated. Because it is the key to our survival, and it is the roadmap to peace and harmony and happiness. We need to really work together and respect one another, respect yourself, respect other people, and respect their property, respect your own property, your money. You don't really misbehave. If the wealthy people knew how to respect wealth, they would be behaving really decently with their wealth. There would be no poor people in Africa, and Africans are dying. The cost of living is killing Africa. Other costs of existence is killing Africa. Africa is a symptom of the world. If Africa can die, then the rest of the world can die. If Africa can live, the rest of the world can live. I choose life. I think we should choose life. We should change the way we think. We should be hopeful. We should be optimistic and work together and look after one another. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.